this is just to show you how you can paint on objects using the UV mode inside Cinema 4D. You can also apply the knowledge to whatever the software you're using. So this is the old file. I think I'll just have to create a new file, but just like ZBrush, this is how you can paint on ZBrush. But let me just create a new file to show you how. So I create my cube, make it editable by pressing C, or how you do it in your software, make it editable, turn it into a poly mesh or something. And then I would have to create a new material. This material, I should have my color channel. Make sure the color channel is visible, because that's where you're going to paint on. That's where you're going to draw on your UV paint and then apply to the material. Then the next thing is make sure you have your UVW map tag, because that is the channel in which will allow you to be able to paint on the material you want to paint on. So inside of Cinema 4D, I just have to move to my body paint UV edit interface, and then I enter this interface to paint. Alright, so I move to my materials tab and make sure that red cross is into a brush, and also that denotes that I'll be able to paint. Also, you see a grayed out X. Make sure that you double click to create a new texture. You just have to create a new texture so that the new texture will apply by that window. You can also create a new texture around that part where it has new texture. It's the same thing, so you'll be able to paint on it. So you're telling Cinema 4D that okay, I want to paint on this texture. But once you paint, you notice that it's applying on all the 4 sides of the cube, and this is not what we want. We want to be able to paint on individual sides of the cube. So all we have to do is enter the UV polygon mode. Once you click it, you notice that this area that is grayed out is going to be active, because it's where you have to unwrap. That's the unwrap side, to where you can unwrap your polygon. So we have the sphere, we have the cylinder, we have the cube, we have the frontal, we have the flat. But if you look at it very well, it's unwrapping the mesh according to the option. So you see the frontal according to where you were. We have the flat, but the main one we're going to use is the cube 2, where it opens the cube out like a cube with equal sides. So we have it that way. It's going to be on a background layer, and also at this point in time, you should note that your mesh is displayed on this white background, like the old projection of your mesh is displayed. So if you have more complex objects, you might have to do some cutting, some manual cutting, but this is just to show you the basics under 12 minutes, because this should actually take longer time if you are doing a more complex model. Do you understand? So the next thing I want to do is to create an outline. I have to create an outline of my mesh, because of my projected mesh, because if I don't do that, once I enter my painting software like Photoshop, it's going to I'm not going to see the outline. So I think I did that too much. Putting a green, see the setting of my brush, putting a green size and a green color and a big size with soft edges. That shouldn't be done. All right, so like I said, I have to make outlines around the projection, but you notice that it's grayed out, and that's because the layers under the layers panel, it's under the background panel. And also I think I'm supposed to make sure the projection is selected. Okay, but before I do that, just look at how I created a new layer, and then based on my projection, I'm drawing on each projected faces, and now it's telling me, oh, which face is which. Like this is the left face, and then I'm drawing on this, which is the top face. So I don't have the problem I had initially when I drew on one big square and it's applying to everything, every side of the cube. This is totally different, right? So you see this, I have a serious face there. Create a new layer, and then change the color of my brush, come back here, draw the black, just for you to get the flow of this. And then you can also okay, let me just change the color here. I just draw the last face. Okay, and then you can also check your active window and paint, like I said earlier, paint like you can paint like this in ZBrush or Substance Painter. You can paint directly on the 3D object, but initially you can't do this if you've not unwrapped in your body paint UV window. If you've not unwrapped, so even if you go back to standard, because you've unwrapped it and you've given the information to your UV mapping, you will be able to paint directly on your 3D objects like this. So it's very, very, very good and helps you. So the next thing is to save it as a texture, as a TIFF document or a PSD document. But most programs go with TIFF. I prefer TIFF because I just prefer it. So I click OK, and I'll be able to open it in my Photoshop and be able to apply more textures or paint on it, or do whatever I want to do to it. Okay, so this time I'm just going to open the file, open TIFF preview. That's it. So, but you notice that my bounding box is not there. It's gonna. So I have different layers. It still reserves the layers like we have in Cinema 4D. But if you notice that my bounding boxes are not there to to show that this is where my cube is, I may have to use my brain to check it out. But that's risky for design and texturing. So I'll go back to my Cinema 4D and make sure that under my background layer, my projection window must be active. Choose the cube and make sure that it's active with these yellow boundaries around it. Change my brush stroke to smaller size, like 2 or 3, and then the pressure I can leave it open, or just that's inconsequential. Then the next is to go back to my projection. So if I click on the background layer, make sure that that's the active layer, because that's where we want the lines to be drawn. But you notice that it's still grayed out. Why? Because not because my background is active or is not active, but because okay, so I actually created a new layer to show you that not creating a new layer will not solve it. It won't solve it at all, and UV mesh layer is not the option. So in order to do this, you have to make sure the active background is active, then go back to your UV projection mode, and then come back to your projection, make sure it's projected, and then you see this yellow mark around it. That's when your options will be active. Once you click to make it outline, then you save it again, and then once it's saved as a TIFF file, you go back to Photoshop and you reopen your file. Okay, so I think I made it green outline, so I have to make it black outline. Change my brush color to black, and then make sure the projection lines are active, and then go to outline polygons. Once the outline, you see it's very visible, and then I save the texture again and go back to Photoshop and reload this texture and reopen it. Once I reopen it, I'm going to say that okay, my lines are back there, and now at this point I can now decide to paint on my cube. I can decide to drop textures within a certain box. Do you understand? But why I like this is that the workflow between Cinema 4D and Photoshop is so sweet, to the point that it just preserves my layers. So okay, let me just look for a texture. I think I have a wooden texture in one of my projects I worked on. Let me enter this file, downloads, and I think let me choose this one. No, let me just that one, and then place it on it. So I expand it and make sure that I get out my texture, the texture I want to get, which is that guy there, just for the purpose of this tutorial, just for sampling. Okay, so make sure you rasterize your layers so you'll be able to manipulate them well, and then invert your selection and delete. So once it's inverted, you see you have to erase part of the textures. So deselect. I think I have to deselect that and then shrink it back in and pick my eraser tool and then begin to erase. Make sure my brush size is bigger and begin to erase the unwanted textures of the picture. Okay, so I think that's it. Then I shrink it and place it exactly where I want it to be placed. So if you're working on a box or something that has the shape, you just have to draw it out and place it on your mapped out shape. So let me do this like this, and fine. I think this is fine for now. Let me just place it roughly, and then I duplicate it. I just duplicate. Okay, just change the blend mode to multiply or something. I think I should use multiply, and then I duplicate my layers. I just press Alt and try to duplicate. No, Alt key. Okay, fine. I duplicate it all around my box surfaces, and then after doing all this, I'll just have to save my file as just save it over the previous step, then come into Cinema 4D and then reload. Say reload texture. Once you guys ask you that question, say yes, and then boom, it's reloaded back into your scene just the way it was in Photoshop. And then you can still work on the layers here, and once you save it, you apply in the Photoshop. So if you check your materials window, you see that your painting is on your color channel. Then let me just add a little reflectance of just add legacy reflectance, and then let me just render this out, and let's just play around with rendering. Let's wait. Okay, so I'm going to add my floor, drop it down, add my floor, drop it down, add my render settings, my ambient occlusion, and double. Okay, add my lights, and my render setting, global illumination and ambient occlusion. Just basic setting, my anti-aliasing, make it best, and okay. And then the next is I just render and check how it is, and let's wait for like a few seconds. I think like 6 to 7 seconds. I think. Oh, we're going beyond that, like 12. Okay, so that is my cube with my texture on it. So just imagine you have a more complex model. You'd have to paint see, it's very, very important to just paint your models, because you have a controllable workflow on your textures and materials. Be able to define whatever you want on what surface, and then go back to your BP mode. And once you select the material, you will be able to paint it no matter what, no matter the situation. You just be able to paint it. It doesn't mean whether you've left the window or something. It's not destructive. And so I can decide to work on the layers, and so hope you really learned from this little tutorial. I know it's not very, very comprehensive as you thought it to be, but this is a very brief tutorial to just introduce you to the UV body paint in Cinema 4D. It helps you to understand how body painting works. Do well to subscribe and like my channel. Do well to thanks for listening. Do well to subscribe, and comment, post a comment, and share the video if you like it. And you can also ask questions, and I'll be willing and ready to answer your questions on 3D. Thank you for for listening and watching. See you later. Bye. Thank you very much.